What's going on, people? Welcome back to the United Stand. Welcome back to another 2 p.m. show. And we have some interesting information that has come out today. It is the financial reports. Now, a lot of people actually, they're so interested in this because I've had loads of conversations with people here and there about where are United getting the money from? Where are they getting all this money from to get these transfers and to, you know, make a new training ground? And how are we even going to build a new stadium? There's so many conversations about Manchester United's finances. So I decided, look, let's get a financial expert because I did business in GCSE, but I don't know a lot. You know what I mean? So we decided let's get a financial expert, Kieran Maguire, and he is going to explain pretty much what these numbers all mean. Okay, so we have Kieran Maguire, financial expert. He's here to explain everything that I can't explain, pretty much. He knows exactly what he's talking about. So Kieran, I mean, let's get straight into it. So the reports have come out, loads of numbers flying around, a lot of confusion between a lot of the fan base as to what these numbers mean. The first question I want to ask is, what is the main takeaway from your point of view from the financial report?
I think there's sort of two things. First of all, the big losses that we saw at Old Trafford in 2024, they're down from 130 million to 40 million. So that's a step in the right direction. And remember, that's without Champions League football as well. The wages are down, partly due to not paying bonuses. Manchester United have a very incentivised wage system, and that won't have kicked in due to a poor league finish last season and not winning the Europa League. So I think those are broadly the good things. The not so good things is that the club had to borrow a lot more money again last year. So we're looking at levels of debt not seen for around about 15 years. Hopefully, we're close to the peak of that, unless the club's going to borrow to build the new stadium.
And in terms of like let's kind of go on both sides. So the positives, so the money that is coming in. I mean, the reports say that the revenue is the highest that's been, I think, 666.5 million. What is the main advantages that we can kind of take away from that? What are the main things that we can look at and say, okay, this is a positive, this is a step in the right direction, or is it kind of just empty numbers? Does it not really mean a lot for coming from the fan base?
You need more money to invest in players.
Yeah.
So the more money that Manchester United generates, the better. It's also good to see that they're starting to make more profits from player sales. And that's one area where they've really fallen behind, especially Chelsea, Liverpool, City in recent years. And so that's good to see. I mean, the extra money coming in, it's good and it's not good at the same time, because if you take a look at match day income, that's the number of matches you play by the attendances at Old Trafford. Well, we both know it's going to sell out 100% at OT, times the average ticket price, and ticket prices are going up, which is good for the accountant. It's not necessarily good for you as a fan. The Snapdragon deal, good news. That's extra money coming in, so commercial revenues are up. So I think that those sort of are the positives. It is being spent. There's no doubt that the investment in players is taking place. I'm not qualified to tell you whether that money is being spent well on players. I'll leave that's for you to judge as a Manchester United fan. But it certainly is being spent. So it's not being hoarded. It's not being squirreled away. It is being reinvested in players and management and new infrastructure in terms of Carrington and so on.
And in terms of the debt, I mean, that's something that the United fan base we've been talking about since the Glazers pretty much came in. There hasn't been much of a difference. The debt is still at 551 million. Now, I mean, I'm not a fan of the Glazers. I don't know if you're a fan of the Glazers. I know most of the fan base, I mean, all you have to do is go to Old Trafford and you can pretty much hear what most of the fan base's opinion are on the Glazers. What are the main takeaways from the fact that the debt hasn't changed pretty much over the last year?
I think it's a frustration. Given that Jim Ratcliffe has put money into the club, you would have expected, has that been used to help to pay down the debt? Because if you've got less debt, you're paying less interest. The important thing as far as the debt is concerned is that United have been paying huge amounts of interest. Admittedly, that was in the early years of the Glazers rather than the recent ones, but still, over £900 million in interest has been wasted. It's not been invested in the infrastructure of the club, and that money could have been spent elsewhere, either improving facilities for us as fans, or alternatively investing more money or investing the money more wisely as far as player recruitment is concerned.
And I want to touch as well on, because I know we don't have a lot of time, so I want to go through a few different things. The amount of money that we spent on players and transfers now, it says that there's 275 million was spent on intangible assets. Now I'm assuming that that's players and stuff like that from transfers. Now, is that a figure that can be replicated next year due to the fact that we won't be getting as much money from, as you said before, match days and all that kind of stuff, and obviously cutting the prices from staff? Can that number be replicated, or are we kind of reaching a bit of a peak in terms of how much we can spend per season?
I think what United have to do is to be more smart when it comes to selling players. Because if you sell a player for 50 million, you've got more money to spend. Yeah, we've seen Garnacho just go. We've seen Sancho go on loan to Villa. We've seen Rashford. So the wages of those players are all helping. And if it's £10 million here, £15 million there, that adds up. Manchester United generate more cash as a football club if you ignore transfers than any other club, not just in England, not just in the Premier League, but in Europe as well. So United have this ability to generate cash, so therefore the capacity to reinvest that in players is certainly there. Could it be another 275 next year? Potentially, yes, especially if they qualify for the Champions League, because they'll know they'll have all of the extra money coming in 26, 27 from the extra matches, from the prize money. They'll get bonuses from Adidas and Snapdragon and so on.
Now, my last question, Sir Jim did an interview with Gary Neville, and he mentioned that there was a point where United could have run out of cash. The money could have been pretty much done. And looking at the reports, I think there's around 86 million, or it says here 86 million that's in United's cash reserve. How true was the reports in terms of how much money we actually had, and also could that still happen? Could we still end up at a point where United do actually run out of cash, or was it more of a statement that wasn't necessarily true?
I think it was a PR exercise from the club at the time. They did get a lot of criticism for the redundancies, for the way that certain decisions have been made in putting up the prices for kids and senior fans, and Sir Alex losing his sort of ambassadorial position. And I think that they were stung by that criticism from the fan base. So they tried to justify it through saying we would have run out of cash. That was never going to be the case. Manchester United is global. Manchester United, it turns people's heads around because it's a story and everybody's interested, and that generates money in so many different ways for the clubs globally as well. So I don't ever think that story had a lot of credibility. Okay,
Kieran, I know you've got somewhere to be, so I appreciate your time. Thank you for that insight. Look, everyone who's watching, he's a host of Price of Football podcast, so make sure you check that out. I'm sure we might put a link in the description, so check it out there. But like I said, Kieran, thank you for your time. And yeah, we'll see you on another show, hopefully.
Take care. Yeah, all the best.
Cheers. Thanks. You have it. Kieran Maguire gives all the insight between those numbers. Now, I've been reading the chat, watching what everyone's saying. There's loads of conversations in there, so make sure you're sending in your super chats. Let me know so we can discuss what are your opinions on everything that you said. The wages, the revenue revenue increasing, the amount of money that we've been losing as well. Let me know all your opinions and let's have a conversation. So, look, one of the things that I really want to touch on that what he said. Was on obviously the debt. Now the Glazers' debt is something that, let's be honest, we've all been talking about it for years. I mean, since I've been alive, I'm a bit older than that, but more or less my whole life, the Glazers have been a problem. I've always heard people talking about the biggest issue with the Glazers. Now, one thing that I actually want to kind of talk about is why that is, because I think a lot of the fan base don't really understand what the problem with the owners actually is, and a lot of people just kind of think we're just blaming the owners for no reason. But the main thing that I want to talk about is the fact that the debt hasn't changed, and we've paid back, I think, almost £1 billion in interest interest. We've paid back almost £1 billion in interest. That is a huge problem. I'll explain why. The reason why is because that money that we could have had in the club could have gone to 1,000 other things. It could have gone to player transfers. It could have gone to developing the training ground. It could have gone to build a new stadium. It could have gone to so many other things. But instead, we've spent, like I said, almost £1 billion of interest because of the debt that the Glazers have put us in. And the fact that we're going into the next year and the amount of debt has not changed. It's not like we're paying it off and, the new owners have kind of put in 200 million or whatever and we're kind of taking off half of the debt. No, the debt is more or less still the same and we're still paying off. Not as much interest, like Kieran Maguire said. The interest has gone down compared to early years, but we're still having to pay these things off. And I think someone made a good comment in the chat, pretty much saying that if the debt was reduced, that means the revenue naturally would be higher because we'd have obviously more money and PSR would be less of an issue. Now, a lot of clubs have issues with PSR because of the amount of money that they can make. Because we're in debt and we're having to spend so much on, like I said, trying to pay this off, it means that we do have problems with, like I said, PSR and with all these other things, which could have obviously helped United grow over the last 10, 15, 20, how long have they been here? They've been here for 20 years now, I'm pretty sure. That's a huge fault and a huge kind of problem that United have had, which we could have probably helped, which could have helped us in the long run, especially now that we're kind of desperately trying to go through this transition period and we're constantly turning up and down players in and out of the club. So that is why the debt for United and that is why the Glazers is such a problem and they've been such a kind of a virus at the club because of the predicament that they put us in with this huge debt. Now, there are a few other things that he spoke about which I think are really interesting. So he did say that the one of the biggest losses, well, we have big losses, but they are taking a step in the right direction. Now, the reasons why is the wages have gone down due to bonuses not being paid out. Now, it's kind of I see that as a positive and a negative because one, it is a positive because they have gone down. We're not paying as much money due to salaries and all those kind of things. But it is also a negative because the reasons what Kieran said was we're not paid as much because we're not in Europe and we're playing less matches. Now, I don't know about you, but as a fan, I want us to play in Europe and I want us to play more matches. I want these kind of things. I want us to be in the Champions League. I want us to, even if we're in the Europa League, I'd rather us be in the Europa League than not be in anything. You know what I mean? I'd rather us be in the Carabao Cup, which we're obviously not in anymore, which means, if we were in that cup, we would have more matches to play throughout the season. But obviously due to that, now our wages have gone down. Now looking into next season, and this is something that Mark actually tweeted about, which I'm going to bring in. I'm going to read that tweet actually right now. He says, those financials for United look okay, to be fair, but we can't avoid the obvious huge losses that are coming in this year. Can only suck half of your workforce once, and those record matchday earnings won't repeat when this is the lowest amount of games we'll play in a season since 1914. And that kind of goes into the point I'm trying to make is we're playing less games because we're not that good at football. And it's like it's a positive and it's a positive and a negative because we want to play more games. We want to play Champions League football. We want to be, going to the final in pretty much every single competition. But that would also mean that we're going to be paying our players more money. I mean, Onana had I thought this was hilarious, by the way. I'm not going to lie. I don't know about you guys, but I thought this was too funny. That it's not funny, but Onana wanted more money. Not more money, but he was. I'm going to use the word annoyed. I don't know exactly what it was, but he was annoyed that his wages have been cut down because we were in Europe. And I just thought to myself, well, we're not in Europe because we're not playing well. Like you can't complain that we're not in Europe, so you're getting less money. But in your contract, and more or less every single player's contract at the club, if you don't achieve, what you need to achieve on the pitch, you're going to get paid less. Naturally, every single player gets paid less if we don't get into Europe, if we don't win the Europa League, if we don't win the competitions. The amount of money you get paid has to go down because we're not playing as many matches, which means we're not making as much money. So, yes, it is a positive that the wages have gone down, but don't be surprised if we have a good season, if we somehow turn things around and have a good season, those wages will all go back up because we're going to end up in the Champions League or Europa League or whatever competition, and we're going to be playing more matches hopefully next season. So I thought that was an interesting kind of point there where it's like, it's one or the other. You kind of you can look at it in a positive, or you can also look at it as a negative kind of way. But also, there's a few other things here. But before I even get into that, I'm going to do a quick plug for. There's a lot of stuff going on in football, especially this week. Unfortunately, United are not involved in football this week. Well, these weekdays that we're going through now, we are involved obviously in the weekend, but the next couple of days there will be some watch-alongs from Mark on That's Football for Champions League games. And I wish United were involved. I know we all wish United were involved, but it's fine. We'll be there next season, hopefully. But yeah, there's going to be a watch-along tonight for Bayern versus Chelsea in the Champions League, and also Liverpool versus Atletico. Two very, very big games. Going to be very interesting games. I know a lot of people are going to be tuning in for them. So if you are going to be tuning and watching them, and you do also like March's watch-alongs, go and check out That's Football. He's going to be doing a watch-along tonight. And also on Thursday, there are going to be some more Champions League watch-alongs. Newcastle versus Barcelona and Man City versus Napoli. Again, two very interesting games I really want to see, because I remember Newcastle having... Who did they beat again? Was it PSG that they beat in the Champions League? They had a really good game. I think it was last season that they beat PSG, and I think like Newcastle versus Barcelona, it could be a very interesting game. But obviously City versus Napoli, Kevin De Bruyne, the return, another interesting game. So make sure you're checking out That's Football for that as well. Another one, look, That's Football is going to be super busy this week, like I said. So make sure you check out them on Friday. Bundesliga. This is a live game. This isn't even just a watch-along. You can watch the game live on That's Football with Mark. It's Stuttgart versus St. Pauli. And it's live footage, like I said. Mark will also be doing, like I said, a watch-along at the same time. So check that out. And Saturday, we're going every single day, yeah? Every single day. Saturday, Liverpool versus Everton. Big Merseyside derby. Another watch-along on That's Football. Obviously, the United game on Saturday versus Chelsea, and Sunday, another watch-along with Bournemouth versus Newcastle and Arsenal versus City. Big game. So make sure you're checking out That's Football. Go over there, subscribe, put on the notification bell so you don't miss it. And yeah, enjoy the rest of this week. So much going on. But look, let's go back into this conversation. Now, look, Omar Berrada, who is obviously the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer for Manchester United, did come out with some quotes. So I'm going to read them out, and I want you to, again, put in the chat your opinions on what you kind of take away from what he says. So Omar Berrada commented, says, as we settle into the 25-26 season, we are working hard to improve the club in all areas. On the field, we are pleased with the additions we have made to our men's and women's first team squads over the summer as we build for the long term. Off the field, we are emerging from a period of structural and leadership change with a refreshed, streamlined organisation equipped to deliver on our sporting and commercial objectives. So just to pause there a little bit, obviously he is quoting about how the club has improved a lot, which, I mean, there are improvements there that we can all see. The training ground, I know you've all probably seen the pictures and videos of the training ground and how it's been they've been working on this for a while now, but that's obviously a huge positive, because I don't even want to bring this up, but I remember when Ronaldo had that interview and he said, look, they've still got the same dinner ladies. They've still got the same jacuzzi from when he was here in 2008, 2009. It was due a rebuild. It was due a redevelopment, new equipment, a whole new pitches and all that kind of stuff. It was about time that we did that. So I think that is a huge positive that we can look at and say, yes, well done. That is something that we need to do. Because at the end of the day, you want to be the best in class, which is what they always talk about, being the best in class on the pitch, off the pitch, facilities, the infrastructure. We want to be the best. So that is an improvement. And obviously, you spoke about the additions made to the men's and women's team in terms of obviously he mentioned building for the long term. So the plays that we brought in, and Bumo, Cunha, Sesko, Lamens, building for the long term is something that the new ownership have mentioned a lot. That's why they kind of go for players that are preferably younger compared to players that are a bit older, and you could say they're more experienced, but the older players that we might have, a lot of the fan base might have wanted, they clearly are looking for the long term, so a lot of younger signings. But look, moving on, he also says we are also investing to upgrade our infrastructure, including completion of the £50 million redevelopment of our men's first team building at Carrington, it's obviously the training ground, on time and on budget, following prior investment in our women's team facilities to create a world-class environment for our players and staff. Meanwhile, planning continues to meet our ambition of developing a new stadium at Old Trafford as part of a transformational regeneration of the surrounding community. Very, very interesting. Plannings continue to meet our ambition of developing a new stadium. I'll be honest, I can't wait. I can't wait. You know what it is? Maybe I'm just hoping I'm clutching onto the positives that I can see, because let's be honest, on the pitch it's not, the results are not that great right now. So I'm kind of looking forward to anything positive. And I don't know about you guys, I know there was loads of conversations before when the whole stadium talks began. But I was always on the side of, I can't wait till we get a new stadium. I can't wait to be in a 100,000 seater stadium, just a whole new, the concourse and all that kind of stuff. I can't wait. So for me, I'm excited for a new stadium. But let me know, are you guys excited for it? Because I know there's loads of different opinions, actually. I remember we did a poll on one of the shows, and I remember it was very 50-50. A lot of the fan base were saying, nah, the history can't be replicated. You keep, Old Trafford how it is. It's one of the longest standing stadiums, in the Premier League and in the world. Let's keep Old Trafford as it is. We don't want to change it. But then there's also a huge segment of the fan base that says, it's time for a change. Arsenal built a new stadium. Who else? Tottenham built a new stadium. Barcelona, they're getting their new stadium, and Real Madrid, bro, they didn't get a whole new stadium, but they not refurbished. They redid their stadium, pretty much. But loads of Lyon, I remember I went to the Lyon game. They had a whole new stadium. Loads of teams across the world are making new stadiums, or at least refurbishing their old stadiums. It's about time that United kind of follow suit and we set a standard, at least, as to what the best looks like. So yeah, I'm a fan. I want to see a whole new stadium. But let me know in the chat, is that something that you guys want to see as well? But also, moving on, you said a couple more things. Redeveloped, thank you. Sorry, my English is just all over the place. Refurbished, revamped, redeveloped, revitalized. I don't think that's the one. I don't think that is it. But yeah, he also says to have generated record revenues during such a challenging year for the club demonstrates the resilience which is a hallmark of Manchester United. Our commercial business remains strong as we continue to deliver appealing products and experiences for our fans and best-in-class value to our partners. As we start to feel the benefits of our cost reduction program, there is significant potential for improved financial performance, which will in turn support our overriding priorities, success on the pitch. I think this is the most important quote that he gave, in my opinion. The reason why I say that is because, and it goes back to kind of what Mark said in his tweet and what kind of we've been speaking about. He's talking about these record revenues and challenging year, and at the end he mentions that the overall priority is success on the pitch. But it just makes me think, if all the cuts that you're making this year and the fact that this season we're obviously not going to be playing as much football compared to last season, how are you going to replicate the numbers that you produced already? How? Because, like I said, we're not going to be playing as much football, which means naturally the match day sales. I mean, let me go back to the numbers that I wrote down before. Match day revenue was 160 million. That's gone up 23.2 million compared to the year before. That's 24.1% of the amount of money that United have made. That's going to cut down significantly. We're only in the FA Cup and the Premier League. That's literally it. We're only in 2 cups this season, so that is going to drop. So for me, I look at it and I think you can't really kind of boast about how much the revenue is and all that kind of stuff, when the reality is all that's going to change compared to this season. And he also talks about the cost reduction program. How much more cost reductions can you make? You've already sacked a whole load of staff, which, I mean, I've already given my opinion on one of these shows before about that. I'm not really the biggest fan of those kind of huge cuts when I look at how much money other people at the club, including the players, are making, and I think you're cutting the cost of people who are making 10, 20 grand a year, and there's guys making 20 million, or let's say 10 million, 50 million. Like, is that the biggest thing that you can kind of cut away compared to how much money other people are making in the club? That's my opinion. That's my opinion. I don't want to go too much into that, but I'm not the biggest fan of how much cost have that kind of been taken away from the working class people at the club. That's just my opinion. But look, and like I said, at the end he talks about the overriding priority is success on the pitch. Unfortunately, since they've come in, the success on the pitch has been the worst that it's ever been. So how can you really be boasting about something when you've actually made your main priority our biggest weakness? Our biggest weakness is on the pitch right now. Everything else we seem to be making a lot of money from, but on the pitch we're the worst that we've ever been. So if that is your priority, why is that not improving? Why is the cost reductions? Why not? Maybe it will improve this season. Maybe by the end of the season we can say, you know what, it worked. Unless, you know what, fair enough. We can wait until the end of the year and we can come back to it, or we can come back to it this time next year and see if it works. But at the end of the day, since you know, the new, like I said, the CEO and the new ownership have been in charge, we've been at our worst on the pitch. So look, I don't know. That's why that quote there is super interesting, because I don't see how you can kind of boast at these kind of numbers. It almost seems like they're throwing these numbers at our face to kind of blind us from what's actually going on. When we're not blind, we're not idiots. We're not idiots. We can kind of see what's going on. So yeah, look, that's my opinion on that. But again, let us know exactly your thoughts on everything that Omar has said. Because I think there's some really interesting quotes in there, and I'm not too convinced in everything he's talking about, if I'm being 100%. But anyway, look, one other thing that I want to talk about quickly before we wrap up the show is I did ask him right at the end about Sir Jim and the quotes that he kind of made in terms of us running out of cash. I never believed it, I'll be honest, because I just thought a club like Man United, you've got billionaire owners, there's so much money running through the club. How could you run out of cash? How could it possibly be that bad? You're supposed to have the smartest people, the smartest accountants, the smartest financial advisors. You're supposed to have the smartest people in the world working at this club, because we're one of the biggest clubs in the world. How have we ended up with no money? And from speaking to Kieran Maguire, he pretty much said that, look, that quote was more or less false. It was almost like a PR kind of thing, and a lot of the fan base didn't believe it anyway. But a lot of the quotes that these owners are kind of bringing out, and this kind of just leads into what I was just saying before, you should kind of take it a bit tongue-in-cheek, because naturally these guys are going to want to get the fan base on their side and almost make it seem like they're the saviors, you know. And I can understand why that is their tactic, because let's be honest, the fan base's opinion on ownership in general is already in the bin. I don't know one person, I've never met someone in my life that said, you know what, I like the Glazers. The Glazers that have actually saved United. Yeah, like what are their names again? Joel and what's the other guy's name? Avram or whatever his name is. Yeah, they did an amazing job at United, and I've never met a fan that's ever said that. So for Sir Jim and Omar and all these guys and Dave and whatever their names are to come in, their job really was to kind of get everyone back. Win everyone back, make it seem like, you know, we're gonna come in and we're gonna switch things up. We're gonna bring in the right players. We're gonna bring in a structure. We're gonna, you know, save money and we're gonna improve what's on the pitch. In reality, they've done some positives. I may not take everything away from them, but I feel like the PR that they're trying to run is very evident. And the fact that the quotes, like Kieran Maguire said, they are bringing out these quotes that aren't necessarily true, I think kind of proves that point that I'm trying to make. But like I said before, I think it's still these numbers are still super interesting. Now, I want to kind of touch on quickly the three main revenue aspects of how United have made their money. And I wrote this down before, and I want to kind of touch on it, and also let me know your opinion on this. So the number one revenue stream that United have is commercial revenue, which is sponsors, shirt deals, partnerships. Now that is at 333 million. That's 50% of all of United's money. So that kind of, to me, what I kind of take away from that is United is still a huge club. I know people, you know, they try and make it seem like United are falling off. We're not a big club. Liverpool are bigger than United and all these kind of things. Look, the numbers, sponsors, shirt sales, partnerships, everything commercial, United are still making a whole lot of money. I mean, you can see it when these guys go out for pre-season and they go to America, they go to Asia, and they go to all these different countries. You can see what the fan base is like around the world. The amount of money that we make is still crazy because the fan base is still huge and we're still a huge club. So commercial, that is still our number one source of revenue. Second is broadcasting revenue. Now, naturally, that is 172.9 million, and that has gone down from 48.9 million. Which is 25.9%. Now, you can probably expect that to even go down more because after this season, because how much we're not going to, like I said before, we're not going to be on TV as much because we're not playing as many, you know, Europa League games, etc. So that is going to be another kind of part of the money where it goes down. And also, the last one is, I mentioned before, match day revenue, which is 160.3 million. That is up 23.2 million, and that is, you know, tickets, hospitality, foods, drink, all that kind of stuff. Now, like I said, that is going to be higher, you know, because we play a lot of games that season, but like I said before, that is going to go down this year. So that is all the information. I kind of just wanted to bring the numbers to you guys so you guys know exactly what the financial reports kind of brought out. And obviously, as mentioned before, thank you to Kieran Maguire for that brief insight into the financial reports. But like I said before, let us know in the chat what are your opinions on everything. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'm going to quickly plug as well. Like I said before, that's football. Like, if you're a fan of the Bundesliga, a lot of people that are watching this that also watch other European, you know, football matches, whether it's La Liga or League One, whatever. But that's all over there. Over here on That's Football, we've got Bundesliga live footage, live games on That's Football. So make sure you head over, watch Mark's. He's going to have a watch along today, but also on Friday, he's going to have a live game for the Bundesliga. But like I said before, Champions League games today and tomorrow. There's going to be so much going on. So check that out. There's also going to be a 4 p.m. highlight show. There's something very different. But, and that's what they're doing a whole lot of new things. There's going to be a 4 p.m. highlight show. Is that on Friday? Is that on Friday? Oh, today. There's going to be a 4 p.m. highlight show on That's Football for Bundesliga. That's crazy. I'm going to go watch it myself, actually, because I kind of want to get a bit more into like other European games, actually get to watch them, you know, so I can see what the other players are looking like in case we get linked to any of them, you know what I mean? So there's going to be a 4 p.m. highlight Bundesliga show on That's Football that you can go and watch. And it's going to be the actual footage, not just going to be Mark talking, it's going to be the actual footage of the game. So make sure you check that out, all the action from the past weekend of football. But yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. And yeah, I'm going to see you in the next show.